Skyrim is under threat from more than just Alduin and the dragons. The Vigilants of Stendarr are reeling after the massacre of their leaders and the burning of the sacred hall of the Vigilant. Rumours begin to spread of a terror in the far northwest of Skyrim, a coven of powerful pure-blooded vampires, and whispers of a prophecy called the Tyranny of the Sun that could bring perpetual darkness to the lands. The Vigilants are weak and were no match, but there is hope in the reformation of an ancient clan of vampire hunters, the Dawnguard. Who will emerge victorious in this battle between darkness and the light? In this video I'll be siding with the vampires and their quest to make the prophecy reality. I'll explore the questline from beginning to end, with particular focus on where the Vampire Questline differs from the Dawnguard. I'll also show each of the faction quests once the main questline is completed, and what else you can complete around the castle. We will look at the Vampire Lord form and what each of the perks do, and quick ways to level these. I'll also briefly talk about survival mode as a Vampire Lord, and the perks of being a vampire in survival mode. Lastly, I'll showcase my Vampire Lord build, skill levels, perk selection, gear and spells. I'm Mike the Gaming Dad, and welcome to my guide on the Volkihar vampires. Let's start off with the Hall of the Vigilant, which sits directly north of Whiterun, not far from Dawnstar. The hall will look pretty normal before the player reaches level 10, but after this point will be left burning and in ruin. The vampire attack on the hearts of the Vigilants leaves it destroyed and many of their members lay dead both outside and within the building, along with death hounds and a few vampires that didn't survive their assault. This is officially at the beginning of the Dawnguard questline, and from this point onwards you will run into a member of the Dawnguard named Durak, an orc clad in their signature buckled armour. He will want you to join up to fight the growing vampire menace. Answer him how you wish, and being inquisitive will lead you to being told to find a man named Isran at Fort Dawnguard, southeast of Riften.
Isran's going to like you. Go talk to him at Fort Dawnguard, southeast of Riften. He'll decide if you're Dawnguard material.
You can also overhear any guard talking about the reformation of the Dawnguard, and that they are considering joining up themselves, which will also trigger the same location prompt.
They're reforming the Dawnguard. Vampire hunters or something, in the old fort near Riften. Might consider joining up myself.
And finally you can head directly to Dayspring Cannon yourself, and even do this before level 10 if you wish to. Approaching Angmir, who is waiting just before the waterfall, will initiate a conversation and start the questline automatically.
Anything like this before. I hope you don't mind if I walk up with you. Hey, don't tell Isran I was afraid to meet him by myself.
Either way, the beginning of the Dawnguard questline always starts the same way, with you joining up with the Dawnguard at their fortress, which remains one of the most impressive sights within Skyrim. Once inside, you witness an argument between Isran and a member of the Vigilants, Tolan. Tolan is requesting protection after a recent attack. After you have approached Isran, he will ask you if you are ready to fight, and once you have asked what you can do to help, Tolan will tell you about a cave they were investigating, Dim Hollow Crypt, the location of a long-lost vampire artifact of some kind, and he says that the cave might have something to do with the recent attacks. This then begins the second quest, Awakening. It is in the depths of Dim Hollow that we first meet Serana, which ends Awakening and begins Bloodline. And here we are tasked with returning her to her home, a castle hidden away on an island to the northwest of Solitude, Castle Volkihar. It is at this point within the banquet hall of Volkihar that the questline finally splits.
My long-lost daughter returns at last.
You have an important decision here to make. Do you accept Lord Harkon's gift for the safe return of Serana, or do you stay loyal to the Dawnguard? Accepting Harkon's offer would lead to a not so pleasant neckbite off him in his Vampire Lord form.
Be still.
When you eventually wake from this ordeal, you are in a previously unexplored area of Volkihar Castle and Lord Harkon is waiting for you. It is within this inner sanctum that you first assume the mantle of the Vampire Lord yourself, and after a short tutorial, Bloodline finishes and the Bloodstone Chalice begins.
He will understand.
At this point you'll have access to the Vampire Lord perk tree, a specific perk tree only accessible in Vampire Lord form, and one you can start to level by killing enemies with your Drain Life spell or Power Bite. You also have access to 3 beginning skills as a Vampire Lord. These are Bats, whereby you transform into a swarm and lunge forward. Think of this as a level 1 of the Whirlwind Sprint Shout. You can also raise corpses to fight for you. And lastly, you have Vampire Sight, which is pretty much like the Khajiit's Night Eye ability, giving you improved sight in dark places. What is good about this ability is it can be switched on and off and used continuously, although it's probably the one I use the least if I'm honest. Before we move on with the questline, I just wanted to give a tip for levelling your Vampire Lord perk tree. As I mentioned earlier, you gain progress as you kill enemies with your Drain Life ability or Power Bite. I think it's 160 kills to fully max out all perks, which can take a while to do, but thankfully animals count towards this total. It doesn't just need to be people. The best place to level this quickly I've found is the northern shoreline between Castle Volkihar and Winterhold. There are plenty of hawkers and mud crabs along here for you to gain progress off, and it's possible to fully complete your levelling travelling from Volkihar to around Dawnstar using this method. The next quest, the Bloodstone Chalice, begins by speaking to Garan Morethi, and this quest is unique to the vampires only.
You don't want to keep Lord Harkon waiting.
Before we head out on this quest though, Castle Volkihar is now open to you, and you can explore it a little bit more and speak to the other inhabitants. I'll quickly list a few points of interest before we head out. So in this room to the left is an alchemy station on the ground level, and then on the upper level is an enchanting table. It is in here that you will often find Ferran Sadri, whom you can buy and sell potions and alchemy ingredients from. Ronthil, Ferran's assistant, is more of a general store whom you can trade various goods with, but what may be of interest to you are 2 unique spells he sells. These are Heal Undead and Necromantic Healing, and these are basically vampire versions of healing and fast healing, and they are good for keeping the Deathhounds alive I've found, as they don't have a lot of health. Ronthil also trains speech should you wish to buy some levels in this. Directly opposite the apothecary in the room to the right you'll find the forge where you can create and upgrade armour and weapons, and in here you'll often find Fiora Bloodmouth who can train you in two-handed if this is your choice of combat. Hessler, who works the forge, also buys and sells weapons and armour, and you can buy vampire armour, boots and gauntlets from her if you want to feel like you fit in a little bit more. Finally, in the last door on the right you'll find the source of how the vampires feast. Ragel Thrallmaster will be in here, along with the vampire cattle in their thrall pens. It is within here that you can also feed to reduce your vampiric powers, and in turn lessen the effects of fire damage and sunlight on yourself. I'll just quickly show the vampire effects now, which affects all vampirism, not just Volkihar vampires. And these are Champion of the Night, which makes illusion spells 25% more powerful. Night Stalker's Footsteps, which makes you 25% harder to detect when sneaking. You gain 100% resistance to disease as a vampire. 20% resistance to frost. 100% resistance to poison. And then finally a weakness to fire and also sunlight in daytime, which reduces your total health, magicka and stamina pool and stops it regenerating. So now moving on to the Bloodstone Chalice, which requires you to travel to Redwater Den. There are a few ways you can approach this quest, and you could go in sneakily or all guns blazing and take everyone out, or let the scene play out. And this is my recommendation, as otherwise you miss out on one step of this quest, so that's what we'll do here. Speak to the dealer behind the counter, and here you can purchase Redwater Skooma as well as Skooma, which seems to be what everyone in here is partaking in. You don't need to buy though, you can also try and persuade her to give you a free sample of this mysterious stuff.
Sure. Find a booth and enjoy.
Either way, with the Redwater Skooma in hand, go and find yourself a suitable place to settle down and drink. This place is a sorry state though, pretty much everyone in here is in a bad way. Like this Khajiit bandit who can't stop coughing. You can also find an Imperial deserter in here who recognises you from Helgen.
You're that one from Helgen. Barely made it out of there myself.
I hurt my back and I just need something for the pain.
Once you have found yourself a nice comfy spot, go into your inventory and consume your redwater skooma. As your vision begins to fade, you overhear the dealer talking about dosed skooma before waking up in a cage.
That's the last of them. Horsehods can't resist after they get a taste of your dosed skooma.
The water from the spring makes the skooma so much more potent. We'll have all the thralls.
The vampire here then talks about the water within the den making the skooma so much more potent, and they are using it as a way to capture citizens to turn into thralls. Unfortunately for them, they captured the wrong person, so begin about unlocking the cage and then slaughter them all. As you explore the depths of Redwater Den, I recommend picking up the Journal of Venerus Vulpin. I won't read this now, but this describes the history of this place and the fate of those who first stumbled upon it. Later on towards the end of the den, you encounter Venerus, who must have drank directly from the blood spring and become a feral vampire. Once you have filled the bloodstone chalice, Stalf and Salonia will show up and mock you about a little accident you are about to have. Salonia wants the chalice for Vilgalmo, and Stolf wants it for Orthiolf, and this is a common theme of Harkon's court: backstabbing, deception and power struggles, so do away with both of them. Once back at Castle Volkihar, Garan Morethi will elaborate on the politics of the court a little further, and once he has finished, the Bloodstone Chalice concludes and profit begins.
Moves against him. Each sought to gain power by using his underling to kill you and keep the chalice for himself. By ensuring the chalice reaches our lord, you have increased his power over them, and at the same time, deprived them of their little pets. You've done Lord Harkon 2 great services. Take what you've learned to heart, and be careful who you trust. Now, I believe that Lord Harkon wishes to speak with you.
You can now drink from the chalice to receive a new effect, Blood of the Ancients, which improves your Vampiric Drain spell to absorb magicka and stamina, as well as health, for 1 in-game day. It is at this point that you are able to recruit Castle Volkihar's Deathhounds as pets, should you wish to have another companion on your travels. You can also ask a lot of the members if you can help anyway now, which starts a random Radiant quest. However, not all of the Radiant quests are unlocked at this point, some don't unlock until the very end, so for the purposes of this video, I'll show all of those together. You can also recruit Serana as a follower again now.
Of course, let's go.
From Prophet onwards, there aren't any more quests unique to either faction sadly, but some events do differ depending on which side you have chosen. I won't go into as much detail on these quests, instead just pointing out key moments. I actually enjoy Prophet more as a vampire because you face the Dawnguard for the first time here, and this makes this section actually unique because if you side with the Dawnguard, you fight the vampires obviously, but fighting vampires is far more common across Skyrim, even outside of the Dawnguard DLC. But you won't fight the Dawnguard anywhere else. As well as Dawnguard warriors, you'll also encounter armoured trolls and huskies in here. After you have released the Moth Priest, cast your Vampire Seduction on him and then feed to enslave him to do your bidding.
By the Divines, it's as if my eyes have been opened. I am blinded by the light of your majesty. I must obey you. What would you have of me, master?
Once he is back at Castle Volkihar with you, command him to read the Elder Scroll and learn the first part of the prophecy.
Ah, yes, the Elder Scroll. I admit, I am looking forward to this.
It's at this point that 3 quests start simultaneously: Scroll Scouting, Seeking Disclosure and Chasing Echoes, although Scroll Scouting requires you to find the Dragon Elder Scroll. If you have completed either of Discerning the Transmundane or Elder Knowledge, you will already have this, in which case Scroll Scouting does not start. and this was the case for me, so instead I only have to find the blood scroll, and to do this we need to speak to Serana and begin chasing echoes. After talking to Tyranny and prompting her to think of Castle Volkihar, you then travel to the inner courtyard, which may give clues as to where her mother Valerica went. After solving the sundial puzzle, you'll be able to enter a part of the castle even Serana has never set foot in. And this section is quite long, and you'll need to fight your way through it. In the room with the gargoyles you can pick up a set of vampire royal armour if you wish. It's now time to enter the soul cairn in search of Valerica. This section plays out pretty much identically regardless of who you have sided with, so do what needs to be done here to get hold of the Elder Scroll.
And keep my daughter safe.
When you return to Dexion, you find him blinded from reading this first scroll without preparing properly. The dialogue here is different for each faction, but they both end with you travelling to the Ancestor Glade as part of Unseen Visions.
Fortune smile upon you, my lord.
Here you must read the Blood Scroll to learn the next part of the prophecy. Following this, the Dawnguard will attempt to ambush you as you leave the Ancestor Glade, so prepare yourself for an intense battle as you are vastly outnumbered. As we begin our search for Auriel's bow, we start the penultimate quest, Touching the Sky. This is probably the longest of them all, as we meet the last of the Snow Elves and explore an entire new map, the Forgotten Vale, a sprawling, icy land dotted with the remains of Snow Elf architecture. After journeying through this area and purging the Inner Sanctum, you'll face off with Archcurate Vertha. And this section can be quite a challenge on higher difficulties due to how many enemies you have to deal with at once. But once you emerge victorious, you can claim Auriel's bow for yourself, which begins the final quest, Kindred Judgment. This quest differs slightly as a vampire, as it's less of an assault on the castle and more you just skip to the part where you confront Harkon. But even as a vampire, however, Harkon presents a formidable opponent. The method you choose is completely up to you. You can stay in human form and attack him with weapons if you wish, and this can be useful in dealing with the skeletons and gargoyles that Harkon summons as well, and dealing damage directly to Harkon. You can also match Harkon spell for spell if you wish and face off as two vampire lords. You can also make use of the bow if you weren't naive enough to hand it over, which is a useful tactic as the bow does additional sun damage to undead targets. Once Harkon is defeated, Kindred Judgment ends and you may continue adventuring, with or without Serana, as the new Lord of the Castle. Congratulations.
I'll probably stay here, for as long as they'll let me.
If you haven't already had this conversation with Serana, now may be a good time to prompt Serana about vampire blood and the bow. As a daughter of Cold Harbour, Serana's blood can turn elven arrows into bloodcursed arrows. If you plan to continue your travels by daytime a lot, you'll want to make sure you have some of these. Serana will reluctantly agree.
Let's just get this over with.
Once all the chit-chat is over though, don't forget to rummage through what is left of Lord Harkon. He has quite a few useful items worth picking up, but none more so than his unique sword. The enchantment on this sword will absorb 15 health, magicka and stamina per hit, and this effect is extremely powerful due to the weight of the sword at just 9. This means the sword actually swings quickly, and quicker swings means more absorption, and this is up there with the best weapons for a vampire. So as the new Lord of the Castle, what other benefits do you get? Well, now we have unlocked the full repertoire of Radiant quests, which we will get onto shortly, but Harkon's quarters in the castle are now yours as well. There isn't an awful lot to do in here, although you can sleep in the coffin at the top level if you wish. Probably the biggest benefit of all at this point though are the Bloodcursed Arrows. In my opinion, the single biggest drawback to being a vampire in Skyrim is the effect of sunlight. You only receive 10 hours of nighttime from 7 PM to 5 AM. Outside of this, you'll see this within your listed effects, and this gets stronger depending on what stage you are. If you are a blood-starved vampire, this can be very debilitating. With the Bloodcursed Arrows and Oriel's Bow, you can make Harkon's prophecy a reality and block out the sun, allowing for safe passage during the daytime hours. And not only is this a welcome relief, the effect of it actually looks really cool, I think. It's like constant dusk, and I love travelling across the map with this effect up. Either way though, the Bloodcursed Arrows is by far one of the most important items you can carry now as a Volkihar vampire. Before I run through the Radiant quests, I'm going to spend the next section going through the Vampire Lord perks, as we haven't looked at these yet. I've fully completed the perk tree now, and the first perk on here is Power of the Grave. This is a straightforward perk which adds 50 points of health, magicka and stamina to your Vampire Lord form, and this is actually pretty big when you think of it that it's equivalent of 15 whole levels in human form. You gain extra stats in Vampire Lord form anyway, but I'll just show the difference now. So this is my current level in human form, 100 magicka, 240 health and 160 stamina. And in Vampire Lord form I've now got 250 magicka, 415 health and 240 stamina, so it's a considerable step up. Moving left, the next perk is Detect All Creatures, and this is similar to Detect Life, but it works more like a bat's sonar. When you use it, it casts out from you in all directions for a second or so, and any life forms within its radius will be lit up, but only momentarily. It shows all creatures, even dwarven machines, so it's a useful skill if you need to know where enemies are. Next up we have Mist form, which temporarily makes you impervious to damage. Think of this as like become ethereal, useful should you find yourself needing some time to recover, retreat or find somewhere to hide. Finally on the left we have Supernatural Reflexes, which slows everything down whilst you move faster, and there is an obvious theme here. This one is basically the slow time shout, really useful if surrounded by lots of enemies at once, or if you fancy just taking everything down flash style. On the right we have Vampiric Grip, and this perk can pull an enemy towards you from a distance, and then do choking damage up close. The more magicka you have, the longer all of these last by the way. Once your magicka runs out, the enemy will be flung off. I was surprised by the distance this perk had. You can pull enemies towards you that are quite far away, like this Northwatch guard in this distance. Next is Summon Gargoyle, which is, well, pretty obvious what this one does. Finally you have your own gargoyle that isn't trying to rip you to pieces. And then finally on the right is Corpse Curse, and this one is basically a paralyze spell, a handy tool to have within your large arsenal of spells to use. Up the centre of the tree we have Blood Healing, and what this does is fully heals you should you kill someone with your Power Bite. A Power Bite is just a power attack when you are on the ground and fighting with your claws, but giving you a full heal per kill is actually really powerful. If you think the health pool of a Vampire Lord will be quite high as you level up, you could be looking at an enormous heal here if you are in a particularly hairy fight. To the right of this is Unearthly Will, which reduces your night powers and blood magic cost by a third. Poison Talons gives you an extra 20 points of poison damage when using your claw attacks. And finally at the top of the tree is Night Cloak. With this, as soon as you enter combat, a swarm of bats will emerge and begin feeding on enemies within melee range. Overall, this is a great selection of powers and really makes the Vampire Lord form formidable. If you speak to Garan after completing Kindred Judgment, he will ask you whether you wish to have the passage through to the courtyard restored.
It would be my pleasure.
If you agree to this, the next time you return to the castle, the previously collapsed passageway north of the banquet hall will be passable now. And this doorway leads directly out into the courtyard, whereas previously this was only approachable via the Undercroft. You can of course now access the inner hidden part of the castle easier now, the area we had fought through with Serana during chasing echoes. However, if you wish to reach Valerica's study or the Soul Cairn, it is still quicker to fast travel to the Volkihar balcony and enter through here. Now that Harkon is defeated, you can also return to Valerica now and let her know the news of her husband's death, and this will prompt her to return from her exile back to Castle Volkihar.
Then I see nothing preventing my return to Tamriel. Allow me to gather some of my things, and I'll head back to Castle Volkihar. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you.
The next time you return to her study, she'll be there and you can help yourself to any potions inside.
In the meantime, if there are any potions you might need, feel free to help yourself.
She also tends the garden in the courtyard, and again you can help yourself to anything in here. Now let's go through the faction quests available as part of the Vampire Questline. There are 10 of these in total, and I'll go through the 7 that are repeatable and then the 3 that only occur once. And these are random, so may happen in any order. Garan Marethi or Fiora Bloodmouth may give you the hunt, and in this quest you have to track down a troublesome Dawnguard member, usually in disguise, and dispose of them discreetly. The location of this one will be random, but once you have found them, you can question them, which raises suspicion that they may not be who they claim to be.
A song? I seem to have misplaced my lute. Another time, perhaps.
You may also attempt to persuade or intimidate them to come follow you.
I don't know anything about any monsters.
Regardless if this is successful or not, once you are out of sight of any watching eyes, take them down. And checking the body afterwards confirms you hit the right target. Your reward for completing this task is a leveled weapon or item and sometimes blood potions.
That's one less troublemaker to keep an eye on.
Garan and Fiora also give out the quest, Protecting the Bloodline. A feral vampire has been located who has taken refuge with a band of necromancers. You are to take this rogue vampire down before they ruffle too many feathers with the inhabitants of Skyrim. The location of this quest will also be random, and once you have located the target, snuff them out. You don't need to kill anyone else, although they will be hostile towards you, so you may have to anyway. The reward for completing this task is also a leveled weapon or item and sometimes blood potions. Speak to Ferran Sadri and he may state he has been performing research on the Bloodstone Chalice. He believes its effects can be prolonged if it is infused with potent vampire power. You're therefore about to be sent on a fetch quest to retrieve an ancient vampire body part in a random location and return it to Ferran.
And I should be able to extend the effects granted by the Blood Chalice.
With these fetch quests, due to the random nature, you may find them inside smaller caves or dungeons that are shorter to traverse, or they may be located deep within some of the longer systems within Skyrim. I was sent to Lost Echo Cave to retrieve this on my save, which is full of Falmer and Chorus. I'm not sure how the Falmer stumbled across this leg, or how Ferren knew its whereabouts deep within here, but now we have it, we can return to Ferren for our reward, and this is also either a random enchanted item or blood
I'll
potions.
make the necessary preparations for infusion into the chalice presently.
If you speak to Vingalmo, he will state he has found a mortal who would be perfect to give Harkon's gift to, usually because this person is in said settlement that Vingalmo wants eyes and ears.
Valandor of Riften has his ears in places that we'd love to listen in. Joining our family should increase our possibilities in the south. Put his mind to rest, allay his fear through vampiric seduction, and when he is in a pliant condition, embrace him and bite him on the neck.
You can ask him questions around why you need to use vampire seduction before biting him, or proceed on with the instruction, and doing so will start new allegiances.
Our new sibling will then likely require rest, while his blood undergoes the change. Return to me when your part is done.
Once you've located the target, make sure you are hidden. You don't want any guards or other citizens seeing what is about to happen. Use your vampire seduction and then bite the target. Give Vingalmo the good news to receive your reward and conclude the quest.
Should you visit him again, I suspect you'll find our new sibling appreciates his transformation.
The penultimate of the repeatable quests now. Ferren Sadri has one of these for you, deceiving the herd. And this one is quite interesting because there are multiple optional objectives here, and the target is up to the player. What you need to do is make a kill in a city, and do it publicly this time. The kill must be out in the open. The higher profile the target, the better, and you can do it dressed as the Dawnguard should you wish, and implant an incriminating note on the victim. The note reads, "Citizens of Markarth, the slain personage before you is a suspected creature of the night, thus the Dawnguard have slain him. Let this be a lesson to all men and women demonstrating unholy powers and those who would protect them. We are watching, the Dawnguard." My location was Markarth and I chose the blacksmith Gorza.
What is this?
And this kill was apparently not high profile enough, however it was in the street so it passed the objective. Now plant the evidence and give yourself up to the guards.
By order of the Jarl, stop right there. Smart man, now come along with us. We'll take any stolen goods and you'll be free to go. After you pay the fine, of course.
When you return to Ferren, his dialogue depends on the conditions of your kill.
Direct the people's anger towards the Dawnguard and away from us. I had hoped you would have chosen a higher profile target, but the deed is done and its effect secured. And you carried out my instructions to kill the victim in view of others, and while wearing the Dawnguard uniform. Very good.
The final of the repeatable quest is given by Garen Marethi, and this is similar to protecting the bloodline, whereby you have to seek out a master vampire in a random location and destroy them.
Which makes it more difficult for us to slip in and out undetected. It is time to cull the weak.
Once you have been taken care of, return to Garen for your reward.
You have done well. It may seem cruel that we hold our thin-blooded kin in low esteem, but our needs must come before theirs.
The next 3 quests only occur once. Speak to Fiora or Garant once you have completed Kindred Judgment, and you may begin destroying the Dawnguard. Fiora believes now we possess the bow, the Dawnguard may fight to claim it, and we must attack first and kill their leaders.
Kill their leaders. That should put a stop to a full-out war.
This is the only quest in this list with a fixed location of Fort Dawnguard. You can approach this whatever way is best for you. If your character prefers stealth, it's possible to take most of the members down without alerting the rest, especially if you do this at night and they are asleep. Or you may prefer to go in all guns blazing in Vampire Lord form and cause as much carnage as possible. Don't forget to use your summoning abilities as well, and bring followers and pets if you play on harder difficulties, as it's easy to get overwhelmed in here. The leaders are tough, especially Isran and Florentius, who will burn you with fire magic. Once you have completed this quest, you should now find the Dawnguard wilderness attacks happen much less frequently.
Good. That should slow them down. But we haven't gotten rid of them completely. A body can rattle around confused long after its head's been severed.
Ferren Sadri has the final 2 quests for you. The first of these is a fetch quest to locate 2 ancient rings of blood magic. You can ask about them if you wish and what they do, or simply state understood, which will begin the quest. Although the rings don't change, the locations of them will be random. The first one I located was the Ring of the Beast, which provides you with 100 extra health and makes your Vampire Lord Claw attack do a 20 additional damage. The second ring is the Ring of Erudite, and this gives you 100 extra magicka and makes your magicka regenerate faster. And once completed, the rings are yours to keep.
I trust you'll put those to good use then.
The final quest is another fetch quest, and this time to retrieve an ancient set of amulets of night power, and you must have the perk Summon Gargoyle to obtain this quest. The first of these amulets I located was the Amulet of Bats, and while wearing this, the bats will drain life from any nearby enemies. The final amulet is the Amulet of the Gargoyle, which will summon an additional gargoyle for 30 seconds whenever you use your Summon Gargoyle spell. Once completed, both amulets are yours to keep.
I'm sure you'll put those to good use.
Before we move on, there are 2 more quests I wanted to show you, for the completists out there. If you complete the side quest The Bonds of Matrimony and have a spouse, speaking to Vingalmo may begin a unique version of the previously mentioned quest The Gift. This time Vingalmo comments on your marriage and wonders whether your spouse may benefit from also receiving the gift, to, as he puts it, avoid any unnecessary agitation or complication.
Should your blushing bride go missing, perhaps unable to bear the thought of living with a monster? Why, you would be distraught with emotion, perhaps even to the point of questioning your loyalty to this court, and we ours to you.
It's up to you how you approach this subject, but should you proceed, the quest plays out the same as before.
Good. I suspected you might possess some intellect. May I strongly suggest that you make a visit to this spouse of yours and invite her to the family by offering her Harkon's gift. It is the greatest token we can bestow upon those we love and wish to see protected. Put her mind at rest, allay her fear through vampiric seduction, and when she is in a pliant condition, embrace her and bite her on the neck. Nature will take care of the rest.
There are only a select few spouses this is possible to complete with, by the way. I haven't tested them all, but I know you can't do this with any of the companions members. I was married to Silja and had already moved her into Bloodchill Manor in preparation for our new life together. Once the quest is complete, when you return to your spouse, they will comment on their new gift and you'll notice a change in their eyes.
I never knew the darkness held such colors, or the night air smelled so sweet. You have given me a great gift.
There are a huge number of wilderness encounters that can occur during adventures across Skyrim, and there are 3 as part of the Dawnguard DLC which can be completed by either faction. And all 3 lead to 3 treasure hunts, and anyone who has watched my channel for a while will know I can't resist a treasure hunt. You can't simply go off and find the treasure though, they only spawn once the random event has happened and you've read the note, so you'll have to be patient with these. It took me a good few hours of just wandering around to get all 3. The first of these only happens in Whiterun Hold and only at night time, but eventually you may spot Dawnguard Hakar fleeing from 2 vampires. The 2 vampires are over here. As we are a Volkihar vampire, I took it upon myself to kill Hakar and also dispose of these 2. Now we can inspect Hakkar's body and collect the Dawnguard cache key from him and read his orders. Novice Harkon, your repeated failures are an embarrassment to our entire order. Are you truly so inept you cannot even complete a single courier mission? You have one last chance to redeem yourself. We recently established a number of wilderness caches to supply our agents in the field. You are to restock the chest listed below and then report back for further orders. Our caches in Whiterunhold are located in Rorikstead in the pasture behind Frostfruit Inn, near Stendarr's shrine in the centre of the tundra, south of Whiterun's western watchtower. You have 1 week. Return successful or not at all. Here is the location of Cache 1 behind Frostfruit Inn, and these all contain similar items. There will be various potions, gold, lockpicks and leveled enchanted items or weapons. Here is Cache 2 at Stendarr's shrine. And finally here is Cache 3 near the western watchtower, and this one is located on this little island in the middle of the stream. The third cache always contains a random scroll as well. The next wilderness encounter only occurs in Hjalmarch, Pale or Winterhold. Dawnguard Salia will ride by on horseback, although she will be hostile if you are a vampire, so quickly dispose of her and then read the note to find the location of the next 3 caches. Salia. In the past several weeks, all of the couriers sent to replenish our supply caches in the northern reaches have gone missing. These drops must be made within the week to ensure our operatives have the provisions they need. You are to restock the following caches. In Morthal on the islet due east of the mill, outside Nightgate Inn at the foot of the pier, near Winterhold under the Great Arch. Take care, too many of our agents have been lost on this task already. Cache 4 can be quite difficult to find. If you head east from the mill in Morthal and then find this little island with a few deathbell flowers on, the cache is hidden amongst the grass next to a tree. Cache 5 is located at the Nightgate Inn, down by the front of the pier. Cache 6 is an unmarked location called the Great Arch, just here on the map. The third and final random encounter took me by far the longest to find, and this encounter only occurs in Haffinger or the Reach. Dawnguard Linnet lies dead on the ground surrounded by smouldering vampire ash. Loot his body for the final orders. Linnet, we've received word of an increase in vampire activity in western Skyrim. In the coming weeks we plan to dispatch several more agents to the region and need to establish a network of wilderness supply drops to support them. You are to plant caches in the following locations: on the small island south of Solitude Sawmill, due east of the entrance to the ruined Volkihar, on the east side of Carthwayston Bridge. If these reports are to be believed, the situation may be far more dangerous than you realise. Be cautious. Here is Cache 7 on the little island south of Solitude Sawmill. Cache 8 is located between Volkihar and Pine Moon Cave. If you face Volkihar to the west and turn 180 degrees, you'll find the cache against a fallen log in front of you. Cache 9 is located near the bridge west of Broken Tower Redoubt. That's all the quests completed. With the Dawnguard dealt with, and all their caches emptied and back at Castle Volkihar, you can kick back in your throne room. In the next section I wanted to briefly explore survival mode as a Volkihar vampire, as there are a few additional benefits they have versus mortals that might be of interest to you. First, let's take a look at hunger. Feeding on a human basically acts like a full meal, which is handy as you aren't short on possible targets as you venture through Skyrim. You can also drink potions of blood, and these state that they restore 380 points of hunger, so they are on par with vegetable soup. But speaking of vegetable soup, if you play vanilla Skyrim, you can still eat normal as a vampire, which doesn't make any sense at all, although there are mods which correct this should you wish to make it make more sense. Another thing which I wish made more sense was the effect of cold. As a vampire you'd think you'd at least have some immunity to freezing temperatures, but your max health drains just as quickly as if you were a human. What is good though is if you transform into a vampire lord, you do gain this immunity and your health bar will disappear. This in particular is really useful should you need to travel across a cold area of the map. As a vampire lord you can do it quickly and safely. There is one watch out though. You may notice the screen still give prompts about your overall health, and the screen will gradually turn blue. And this is because your human form still takes the cold damage in the background. Let's just take a look at this if we transform back. Look at what has happened to our health now, and this is because we are freezing cold. If we revert back to a vampire lord, our health regenerates, so it's something just to be aware of to complete your journey and get somewhere warmer before you revert back. Overall, playing as a vampire in survival mode does feel easier than human. As a vampire you need to feed anyway to reduce your vampiric powers, unless you use the Bloodcursed Arrows on the sun, and that doesn't really change in survival mode, it's basically doing what you were doing beforehand. I thought I'd spend the next segment showing you all my skill levels, perk points and gear selection. The Volkihar Vampire is a well-rounded character, so there are different ways you can approach this. This is just the way that I decided to level my build. So my build I levelled Alchemy to 100, and I have the same 7 perks I usually select during my builds. I did this as part of the alchemy, enchanting and smithing process of creating strong enchanted gear. Speech is level 72 but no perk selected, and this has grown due to selling the potions I made so I could raise gold to buy soul gems. Illusion I haven't used for this build, however illusion is a really good tool for vampires if you want to go down that route. Conjuration is level 100 using the soul trap method, and I have 4 perks up the middle of the tree: Necromancy, Dark Souls and Twin Souls. Destruction is also level 100 using the Unbounded Storms method, and I have Destruction, Dual Casting and Impact selected, as well as both levels of Augmented Frost, and finally Deep Freeze. I don't normally use Frost magic, but as a vampire it feels like it makes more sense. Restoration and Alteration I haven't touched at all. Enchanting is level 100 with all 5 perks in the base, and then the 3 up the middle. For smithing, the important perk here is Arcane Blacksmith. I've also selected Elven Smithing and Advanced Armours, although I didn't probably need these. Heavy armour we don't use, and block is level 31 but no perks are selected, and two-handed we don't use either. One-handed is level 85 with all 5 perks in the base, plus fighting stance on the first stage of Bladesman. Marksman is level 64 with 4 perks in the base, plus Eagle Eye and the third stage of Steady Hand. Light Armour is level 74 with 4 perks in the base, plus Custom Fit and Unhindered. Sneak is level 76 with 1 perk in the base with Backstab, Deadly Aim and Assassin's Blade, plus Muffled Movement, Lightfoot and Silent Roll. And then finally, Lockpicking and Pickpocket I haven't put any perks in. So overall now as a Vampire Lord our Magicka is boosted to 580, Health is 690 and Stamina is 380, which is very high. Even on Legendary difficulty this makes us tanky. Let's take a quick look at the gear. So weapon we have Oriel's Bow, which has been levelled up using smithing potions I made after completing the alchemy, enchanting and smithing cycle. We also use Harkon's sword, which has also been levelled up. For our gear I thought I would stick with the amulets and rings we received as part of the quests, so we are using the Amulet of the Gargoyle for the extra summons, and the ring I am currently using is the Ring of Erudite, but I tend to switch these up depending on the situation. For our headpiece I made a circlet to reduce destruction and conjuration magic by 35%. I could have used the Necromage method to make these better, but there's already so much going on with this build that I didn't think it was necessary. It doesn't need to be too busted. On our armour we also have Conjuration and Destruction Magicka cost, so this is 70% in total across both pieces. On our boots we have extra stamina and fire resistance, and fire resistance is key as this is the vampire's main weakness. And then finally on the gauntlets we have extra bow and one-handed damage. This is my favourites list, which contains the spells I am using when in human form, and I only use these spells. So we have Dread Zombie, which is the expert level reanimate spell, Frost Cloak, Ice Storm and Icy Spear, and then finally Touch of Death, which is the expert level strangulation spell. There is one final benefit at this stage of the build which I haven't mentioned yet, and that is how many followers you can carry at any one time. You of course can have a companion such as Serana, and you can also make use of the castle Deathhounds on your travels. If you have the Twin Souls perk in human form you can have 2 reanimated corpses as well, so it'll be you plus 4 in total. And in Vampire Lord form you can also have 4 by making use of the Summon Gargoyle perk and wearing the Amulet of the Gargoyle. You don't need a harem to follow you around obviously, you're more than powerful enough running solo, but it's a nice factor of playing as a Volkihar vampire that adds to the experience. And that's everything I wanted to showcase in this video. It's been a long time since I last chose the side of the vampires, but it's been a fun experience role playing as a vampire lord, and there were a few extra things I learnt myself when pulling this together. Overall the vampire lord is probably one of the most well-rounded character classes within the game. It's hard to pinpoint any weaknesses in their kit once you have access to the Bloodcursed Arrows, and negating fire damage is really easy to do. They have access to a wide-ranging number of skills that makes combat interesting and gives you the ability to approach it in different ways, and this makes them a good option for both newer and more experienced players. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe, and that way you'll never miss any of my future Skyrim content. I'm Mike the Gaming Dad, and I'll see you next time.